And I was working on another book that was going to be the beginning of a shorter series again. I was going to do another trilogy or a duology. And that's when the wheel of time fell on me like a ton of bricks. Like a freight train, unexpectedly driving through the middle of my house and plowing into me. I told this story last year, so I won't tell it again. You all heard it, but Harry called me out of the blue, unexpectedly, since I hadn't applied. In fact, I had consciously not applied to do the Wheel of Time book because I had thought it was not respectful of Robert Jordan. I thought I had withdrawn my horse from the race, so to speak, and then I won anyway, which is really weird. But anyway, that really changed everything. I had to drop everything. Part of when I made the decision was saying, okay, my own projects all get put on the sideboard. I'm going to do the Wheel of Time now, and that's, everything I have has to go to that. And so I finished Gathering Storm, and of course, Wheel of Time, anything related to Wheel of Time takes far more effort than you think it's going to. I will get to more questions here. And I finished, and we have the whole story on the split, which I explained last year and things. You can read my essay on it online. In conjunction with that was Tom Doherty, who's the owner of Tor, calling me and saying, Brandon, we don't have a Brandon Sanderson book for 2010. And I said, Tom, you just asked me to finish the Wheel of Time. Now you're wanting another book from me. Something here is not jiving. Of course, there's no book for me in 2010. It's because I dropped all of those books to work on the Wheel of Time. And he said, well, I really would like to have one. Your own readers deserve. Is there anything that you have that we could do, that we could release? And I said, well, if you really want to, I said, I've got a project, but it's really ambitious. And Tom said something that he probably never should have said to me, which is, I don't care what it is. He was, at that point, he had just read Gathering Storm. He was really pleased with it. He said, I don't care what it is. You do whatever you want, and we will publish it. This isn't the sort of thing you hear very often as an artist. Do whatever you want, we don't care. And so, if you read my blogs, I took the summer off last year after having spent 18 months or so straight on Gathering Storm. I was worried I was getting burned out, and so I needed to do something else. This fell in its time, and so I rewrote Way of Kings from scratch. Threw everything away and started over. I did keep my world book that I had spent 10 years designing. So that's a lot of work that I had, and I'd already written the book once. And so I told Tom, if it turns out good, if it turns out well, then I'll do this. So what is the Way of Kings? It's 400,000 words. It got up to 430, but I cut it down.
We noticed.
Yeah.
Facebook posts.
Yeah, Facebook posts, if you follow that thing. It is something I've been working on now for 10, 15 years. My big grand epic that I've been wanting to tell. It has colored end pages, which he swore he'd never do again after the Wheel of Time because they're so expensive to put those maps on. I got those, my own colored end pages, because he said anything. I got Michael Whalen to do the cover, because he said whatever you want. And he had to call Michael Whalen on the phone personally to get him to do the cover, because Michael Whalen doesn't do covers very often anymore. So Tom had to call him and call in a favor from '97, where Whalen had once said, if you really want me to do a cover, you have to call me and I'll do it. And so Tom did that, so we got Mike Whalen to do the cover. If you haven't seen the cover, it's gorgeous. I'd always wanted a Michael Whalen cover. That's another thing, if you can read, there's a Tor.com essay I wrote that's very from the heart about how Michael Whalen's work, it's in your program books, how Michael Whalen's work kind of inspired me a lot during the early years. So I got that, and there are 20 pages of illustrations inside the book. I read epic fantasy, I like maps. One thing I liked about the Wheel of Time, we get lots of maps. So I think we have 8 maps in the Way of Kings. 8 maps. One of the characters is a natural historian, so doing sketches and writing about animals and creatures. It's a pretty wacky world. And so I have actual illustrations where she has drawn the creatures in her sketchbook and annotated them, and those pages are actually in the book. There are places where they mention a beautiful relief done on one of the walls, and I actually have a rubbing from the relief in the book. So the illustrations aren't illustrating the book, they're pieces of art in the book mentioned. So I can kind of dip one toe into this whole multi-genre thing, so we can have some. Anyway, this is the sort of thing I love about epic fantasy. It's one of the things I love about Jim's books, and that we had with Tolkien even was the essays about it and stuff. That it feels real. He made it real for us, and I want this to be real. And so throwing in the art, and so every time I do one of these things, I can just see Tom rolling his eyes, going, "What did I do?" But one of the other things. And this is the final answer to your question. One of the other things I said to Tom is I would do the first Stormlight Archive book. The series is called the Stormlight Archive. A weird name because I like weird names. I will do the first Stormlight book, but we will have to tell people straight up that the second one will not come out the next year. I will write the first one to be pretty self-contained, so it can be a great book on its own, but there's no way I can do this again, meaning get out Stormlight book and a Wheel of Time book in a very short time frame. And so after Towers of Midnight, there will not be Stormlight 2, though he wanted it. I said, I can't write them that fast. And so after that will be A Memory of Light, and then we will have Stormlight 2. So I was only able to do this one because I'd already written it once. So I could write it realistically in 6 months or so. Epic fantasies normally take me much longer than 6 months. The Gathering Storm took 16. And Towers of Midnight is shaping up to take just about as long, which is funny because it's getting published. They wanted only 11 months after the other one. So fortunately, this is a little tangent. Fortunately, in the past, one of the reasons why I think I was considered for Wheel of Time, one of the many reasons, one of the lesser ones, was I was very far ahead on everything, right? Warbreaker I wrote in 2006 and turned it in 3 years before its publication date. I like to work ahead because it gave me flexibility. Well, you can see 3 years of time with me eating up a lot of that with Gathering Storm, and now and some of it with The Way of Kings. My buffer is all gone. I turned in Warbreaker 3 years ahead. I turned in The Way of Kings last week. And it's getting published in August. So I think it was 4 months before publication. So we've gone from 3 years to 4 months, and I think that the Towers of Midnight I'm probably not going to be able to turn in until like September. They said October on it. They had been telling me November. It might be November, just so you know, despite what they're saying. In fact, I think there's really no chance it's going to be in October. But they didn't tell me about that. They just scheduled. I'm like, guys, that month means a lot. Towers of Midnight, there'll be a question about it inevitably. It is going very well. There are some things I had to work through. We can't rush it. When you're writing, as a writer, sometimes some things take a long time and sometimes some things go very quickly. And one of the things about writing is the readers can't generally tell between the things that came quickly and the things that came slowly. That's how art works. You don't notice what parts were easy and what parts were hard, because the parts were hard we keep doing until they look like they were easy. And that's just the way it happens with art. And so, anyway, I'm still working on it. There's still some scenes I want to write. First draft of most of it is finished. But yeah, I can't really give you an ETA. I'm shooting for November. If I miss November, it's not going to be missing it by much. But if I do miss November, they would not probably release it in December or January, which are really bad months for books, because people are so busy with the holidays and things. So if I miss November, it probably would be February. That would just be my guess. That's not on the record, you know. That's even though you're recording this and posting it online. You can just post that. It's not on the record, meaning I don't have decision-making power over this, and things like this. It will be done when it's done, and I won't rush it. But just so you know, if I miss it by a week or two, that might translate to you getting it a few months later, just because those are terrible months to release books.